Well, let's speak now to Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng. He is backing Liz Truss to become Prime Minister. Good morning to you, Mr. Kwarteng.
Absolutely. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, can I have your reaction to that debate last night? What did you make of Ms. Truss's performance?
I think she did well, and I think she gave a very good account of herself. I also think that Rishi did well as well. I think they're performing at a high standard, definitely.
Yes, so it did seem as though the audience was on the side of Mr. Sunak last night. I don't know if you managed to catch at the end. There was a vote in the room of who they would vote for. Two-thirds were on the side of Mr. Sunak by the end of that debate. How do you react to that?
Well, look, I think Rishi performed well. I just don't buy his message. I don't think more of the same economically makes any sense. Liz was talking about the possibility of a recession, which isn't inevitable, but she talked about a recession in the first debate, which has been caused, as Rishi said, by inflation. But to deal with a recession by increasing people's taxes is not a very sensible thing to do. And I think Liz is right about that. Now, I think that as time goes on, her message is resonating, certainly with our members, that you can't deal with a recession by putting up people's taxes. You can't tax your way to growth.
But of course, make sure you get your earpiece back in. His argument, Mr. Kwarteng, is that reducing taxes would make the situation worse because, and I'm quoting him here, if we just put fuel on the fire of this inflation spiral, all of us are going to end up with higher mortgage rates, savings and pensions that are eaten away, and misery for millions.
So look, I think this is completely wrong. The corporation tax that Liz is saying should stay at 19%. Keeping it at 19% is not inflationary. What Rishi's doing is trying to increase taxes when they're already at a 70-year high. Since 1949, we have not had the tax burden that we have today as a proportion of our economy. And to increase that when you're facing a recession is exactly the wrong policy. I also think that a lot of these tax rates, and people don't say this, they were set last year. The corporation tax rate was set 2 years before it was due to happen in 2021. The national insurance rate was set in train at the end of last year, when the inflation situation was very different. Now, what Rishi's done is essentially doubled down. Even though the facts have changed, even though the prospect of recession is more acute, he's simply carrying on with the same policy that he enunciated at the end of last year. That cannot be right. We've got to change something in this economy. We've got to create incentives. And that's where I think Liz is on a much stronger ground. And you don't need me to say this. I mean, Rishi himself started off saying that he was a grown-up and tax cuts were fairy tales. And then only 10 days ago, he offered tax cuts. He said he was going to reduce VAT on energy bills, which was exactly the argument. He fought that argument when he was Chancellor, and he's had to pivot on tax. So even Rishi accepts that the current path we're on is not going to get us to a good place.
Mr. Kwarteng, there has been some criticism that Liz Truss is pulling policies out of her hat at this stage to get ahead in the race. She says she's going to unleash investment, boost economic growth, take full advantage of Brexit. She was a Remainer, now she's not. Wanted to cut civil servants' pay in the regions. Now she says she didn't say that. How much is she saying just to appeal to Conservative Party members at the moment? And can she actually see these policies through in the economic climate that we're now in?
The person who's coming up with lots of policies on all sorts of things is Rishi Sunak. He said, he's going to be a hawk on China, even though he was pursuing Chinese deals when he was Chancellor. He said that he wouldn't cut taxes, and then he pivoted and said he's going to reduce taxes and reduce VAT on energy bills. He's been flip-flopping all over the place to try and get attention. That's his right. It's a very keenly fought contest, and people will say lots of things to try and attract votes. I think Liz has been perfectly consistent. She's always said that increasing taxes when you've got recession ahead of you doesn't make any sense. And I'm glad to see that I think Rishi has now realised that. He even said yesterday that he would make an intervention. So even he is saying that there has to be some support for people in a very difficult winter. And that support isn't going to come from taxes. He's not going to simply just take more of people's income and give it back to them. He's got to try and have a looser approach, and that's what he's pretty much signalled.